Today on Locked On Rockies. Well, big returns for the rotation. Does that mean the Rockies are in the best spot since the pandemic?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 5th day of February. What am I doing? Here on the Locked On Rockies podcast, we are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. We are your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Trying to shake off this Wednesday morning vibes here and get ready for a great episode for you today. On today's episode, we're focusing on the rotation. What I've done is I've looked at the rotations from 2019, 2020, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Yes, that means I skipped 2020. Sample size just too small, I think, for what we're trying to look at and what we're trying to see here as we're comparing things and gearing up for what should be one of the, if not the biggest talking point of the season, I think, is this young pitching, or is going to be this pitching staff. I guess the young guys as well, but they're, these young guys could factor into it. What type of steps forward does Ryan Feltner take? Does he grow into a second in the rotation role? Does Kyle Freeland dip back from his usual top of the rotation role, which he has filled for a couple of seasons now? What does that mean for both of those players? What does that mean for the Rockies? And let's just see how the Rockies rotation compares to these last few full seasons, just to see the names that are on there and the impact of the pitchers when the Rockies have them. So we're going to take a look at that today. That's going to be our main focus of the episode today. So hang in there. Join us. Let's talk pitching today. And before we dive into all the fun, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Great account. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Reminder, this is the Locked On Rockies podcast. You can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. And if they're your favorite team, you're in the right spot. So let's dive in here. So I just wanted to go over some of the rotations here. So remember, last year's rotation for the Colorado Rockies here was Austin Gomber, Ryan Feltner, Cal Quantrill, Kyle Freeland, and Dakota Hudson and Ty Blach also getting starts in the season as well. I'm trying to see if there was anybody else. Let's see. Peter Lambert, of course, getting some starts there. Tanner Gordon got 8 starts this year as well. 6 starts from Bradley Blaylock. 3 starts from Senza. 1 start from Herman, and that's about it. So a couple of people, handful there, but the main focus of people that started multiple games, 10 plus games, is the main focus here. So those are the names there of the rotation last year. Let's go down to 2023 here now in this one. Freeland, Gomber, Chase Anderson, Ty Blach, Chris Flexen. That's 2023. 2021 rotation, Herman Marquez, Kyle Freeland, Chad Kuhl, Austin Gomber, Ryan Feltner, Antonio Senzatella. So that one you kind of maybe like raise your eyebrow a little bit. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe that one's got the argument for the best Rockies rotation, and I know what I'm saying there of late. Let's go to 21 here. Herman Marquez, Antonio Senzatella, John Gray, Kyle Freeland, Austin Gomber, and Chichi Gonzalez. That was 2021. And then finally in 2019, that rotation was Herman Marquez, John Gray, Antonio Senzatella, Kyle Freeland, Peter Lambert, and Jeff Hoffman. Let's see. There was also some other folks. Chichi got 12 starts that season. Chad Bettis got 3 starts. Tim Melville and Tyler Anderson there, of course, getting some starts. But the main focus is the folks that started 10 games for the Colorado Rockies. And the initial thing, the main thing you're looking at and saying is kind of just like, woof, right? On paper, none of those rotations really jump out to you. But I want to focus and point in on some numbers here. The highest ranked pitcher by WAR for the Colorado Rockies last year in 2024 was Austin Gomber at 2.1 WAR. 2.1 WAR. The highest for the Rockies in 2023 was 1.6, and that was Kyle Freeland at 1.6. So over the last 2 seasons, starting pitching performance for the Rockies has not gotten over 2.1 WAR. And that's an important stat to bring up because Kyle Freeland got 2.3 WAR in 2022. And going back there, there were 2 pitchers that had at least 2 WAR and one close to getting 2 WAR. German Marquez going at 2.4 WAR in 2022. German Marquez 2.4 WAR, Antonio Senzatella 1.9, John Gray 1.6, and Kyle Freeland 2.0. Go back to 19 here in 2019, 2.8 WAR from German Marquez. John Gray had a 3.6 WAR in the season, the season before he walked. Oh, that one will always be a big miss to me. So, okay, I hit you with those numbers. Why is it important? Well, that's because no Rockies pitcher over the last 2 years has had as good of a performance as the Rockies, as the best Rockies pitcher since 2019. They did not have a pitching performance that exceeded 2021. You see here the trends, the real red flag, I think, for a lot of people is the fact that German goes from 2.8 WAR in 19, 2.4 WAR in 21, 1.3 WAR in 2022. Of course, not pitching much in 2022 or 23. I'm sorry, and then of course not pitching much in 2024. That right there highlights the fact that German impacts this rotation more than just about any other pitcher here. German's worst season when he was healthy here that we've seen in the last 5 seasons, and I know he's been hurt 2 out of the last 3, was 1.3. The 1.3 WAR put up by German Marquez would have made him the second best starter for the Colorado Rockies in 2023, behind Kyle Freeland's 1.6. The bad season for German Marquez, if you compared it to last season's pitching performance, it would have been the 3rd best pitching performance, slightly behind Cal Quantrill, slightly above Ryan Feltner, and below Austin Gomber. German Marquez's return to the rotation can't be undervalued. This rotation could be looking at a 2022 style type of performance. Again, this is where the pitching staff kind of steps up and contributes, even in the grand scheme of things, as the team is losing and not performing up to snuff here. But these are still guys that are in 2021. The Rockies had German Marquez, who was above 500. They had John Gray, whose win-loss percentage was 400. Kyle Freeland, who was 0.467. And Austin Gomber, who pitched to a 500 performance that season. German Marquez was an all-star in that season as well. A Rockies pitcher was an all-star in that season. And so that's just German Marquez that we're focusing on right here in terms of WAR. I'm not even going into the deeper numbers. I'm just saying the seasons that they put on, how do they compare to what the Rockies have been dealing with as a rotation lately? And it's a total game changer here. Antonio Senzatella here is a bit of a different question. Senza's much more of a roller coaster. Negative 0.7 WAR in 2019. 1.9 WAR in 2021. 2022, 0.4 WAR. 2023, injured. 2024, injured. So you're not sitting there saying, man, Senza's got that same type of impact, that for sure guaranteed impact that German Marquez has. But his 1.9 from his last full-fledged, fully healthy season here, I guess that's not true. He pitched, let's see, what did he pitch here? He had 19 starts in 2021 and 2022. So not necessarily the most fair thing there, but he still can bring you performances that would rank higher than just about anybody. Let's take a look here if Senza can recreate that 1.9 type of WAR season that he had in 2021. How would that compare in 2023's to 2023's rotation? He would be the best pitcher on the Rockies in 2023 if he has the same season that he had in 2021. In 2024, where would he have ranked in terms of a starting pitcher? Well, he would have had the second best pitching performance out of the entire rotation if he's able to recreate that season from 2021. It just goes to show you that the Rockies rotation has been such a mess. And going through these, you remember and remind yourself that Jose Urena had 17 starts for the Rockies in 2022. The Rockies have had to fill with these stretches of guys. 13 starts for Connor Siebold, 11 starts for Peter Lambert in 2023. Lambert's a different story there, of course, being a younger guy in your system that you want to get some time to. But you've had to turn to Connor Siebold. You've had to turn to Jose Urena. You've had to turn to Chichi Gonzalez. You've had to turn to all of these players because of the injuries that you've dealt with. You're now setting yourself up for a situation here where if Germán and Senza are healthy and are contributors, there's an argument that this rotation can be the best one the Rockies have had in 5 years. The best one they've had since 2021, I'm sorry, where the Rockies had only one starting pitcher finish below zero WAR, so was below wins above replacement, was not as good at the replacement level. And multiple pitchers finishing with higher than one and multiple with 2 WAR. And again, I know maybe I'm relying too much on that. I'm not diving deep enough into the numbers, but these are the WAR at least tells you the impact, shows you the impact, and says these guys, when they are on the field, put the Rockies in better positions to win than when the Rockies have gone to other starters. The jury will still be out on how both Marquez and Senza are going to bounce back returning from injury here. But these are two guys that you have to sit there and say, we have to be confident in, specifically Germán Marquez. Germán Marquez is the type of pitcher in the top of the order position or player that you needed to set the tone, so you don't have to over rely on Kyle Freeland and Peter Lambert and Ryan Feltner to handle things. You can add more depth and you can be able to turn to some pitchers that you have been confident and believed in. You signed both of these pitchers to extensions. You believe in these guys. And if you're Germán Marquez, you can't really afford to be a slouch this year. And I'm going to explain why coming up in segment number 2 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 players' projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with one more correct pick and you're cashing out. This week, you can check out all the action for the big game. Maybe you like the Travis Kelce passing yards. Maybe you're interested in the Saquon Barkley rushing yards. Well, you can go check it out all yourself. And if you want to go check out any of the fun promos, they got the promos tab for that sweet, super sweet Millie Winners big game lineup. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can split a $1 million promo fund. Check that out there. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, you found the right spot, because that's what we're doing around here. Talking rotation today, talking the impact of Senzatella and Marquez. It's also something that's talking about confidence here, and we'll dive more into that. But just a reminder, for your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB with our guy Sully. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, and of course, you're going to be wanting to watch what's happening on the hardwood here as the trade deadline continues to loom, Locked On Nuggets got you covered there. The Avalanche in full swing, Locked On Avs, Broncos, and Buffs also got Locked On pods for you to enjoy as well. So go check those out, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Okay, So here is what I was saying about German Marquez. It's not just a prove it kind of year for German and Senza to just, reestablish themselves in the rotation and help change the narratives about the Rockies. No. This season sets the stage for the next phase of German Marquez's career. His contract is up. He basically is going to have to put himself in or create a situation in which the Rockies have no other choice but to sign him because he's been so good. So, he's been so dominant, so consistent, and has been a constant contributor throughout his period or time with the Colorado Rockies when healthy. On the flip side, if German Marquez is maybe thinking in the back of his mind that, I don't really know how much I'm buying into the rebuild. I don't know how much I'm buying into where the Rockies are at. I don't know how much I'm buying into this, that, or the other thing. He needs to set himself up for that next contract, that next team. And he's going to have to deal with the curse of being a Rockies pitcher that also had health issues. But on the flip side, look at what just happened to Jeff Hoffman. Look at what happened to Carlos Estevez. And I know Estevez isn't necessarily a starter that it's comparable. John Gray has settled into a nice, solid career with the Texas Rangers as well. Ups and downs, certainly, but a guy that has contributed. That's going to be something that I don't know if it's going to be the forefront of his mind, but it'll certainly be a focus of German Marquez this year. This is a contract year. Whether you need to convince the Rockies enough that it's worth giving you another contract and saying, you're our guy, German, you are our anchor, lead the way. Or you need to set up yourself for other teams to make it maybe enticing at the deadline for the Rockies to do something where German can go pitch for a competitor. Other teams can get a look at him. German can get out of course for a bit and see what happens. Or the Rockies don't trade him, which, Rockies could Rocky. And he moves on in the offseason and show his teams that he's good. He's healthy. He's ready to pitch. He's ready to pitch in this second half of his career post-injury and in this next stage that isn't Colorado. German Marquez has no time for a slow start this year. Just plain and simple. The Rockies can't afford a slow start from German Marquez either. I guess even when I say they can't afford it, what does that really matter or mean for a team that most likely is going to be at the bottom of standings and isn't going to be fighting for playoff spots? But if you want to surprise people, if you want to shock people, if you want to put yourself on the radar of other teams for acquisition or signing in the offseason, German has to come out the gate strong. German has to come out the gate and set the tone for this Rockies rotation. Because I think if German Marquez can do that, it's going to instill the confidence and build up the rest of the rotation. A good German Marquez makes the rest of the rotation better. It adds depth. It makes the bullpen less blown through. If German can come and give you the 6 innings of strong baseball that you need, 6-7 innings, 7's always a stretch in the modern game, I know. But if the Rockies can have something that they haven't had in years, which is good, solid, constant belief in their rotation and the players that are there, they can change the narrative about this season. They can start off the season off hot, or at least not at the rate that they did. And then in the case of Senzatella, you're also in a similar type of situation here, where you're sitting here saying, as the Rockies and as you're evaluating, what are you going to do with all these other young arms, the type of deal? How much are these guys going to get? And I think Senza is going to start feeling a little bit of the pressure here, especially because the Rockies here, he signed Antonio Senzatella's under contract through let's see, this year and then next year as well. He's got 2 more seasons. Then there's a club option here before becoming an unrestricted free agent here. And if you're the Rockies and it comes to a $14 million decision coming up in 2027, and you're getting kind of the same old performances that we've been seeing from Senza, and not the 1.9 WAR years from Antonio Senzatella, that's going to be a question to make, especially as, again, the Rockies are going to be sitting in a situation in how many young pitchers are going to be coming up and getting opportunities this year. who is going to be the one that falters there? Is Austin Gomber going to take a different role? Is he going to dip back into the bullpen? How does he factor in to this entire rotation situation as well? Senza also doesn't have time to waste. I mean, again, this is someone where, the Rockies are on the same payroll hook for him for both this year and next year, but to add another $2 million in 2027 in a situation when you're looking there and saying, okay, 2027 with this young core and what the Rockies have, and if they're actually developing, you're hoping 2027 is a competitive year. You're hoping that 2027 is a year in which that the Rockies are, adding in the big names or surprising people or putting up, ramping up the efforts here. So for Senza, you got to show that you can be an anchor in the middle of the rotation. You got to show that you can contribute, that you're able to induce the weak ground balls, that you're able to use the defense, because there will be questions again if Senza comes out and puts on some of these other years that he's had. You kind of sit there and you pull on your collar a little bit, and you're just like, hey, let's see. But on the flip side, when he has been successful, when he has had his good seasons, 2017, their 2.2 WAR in 20 starts, and 2021 there, 28 starts in that time. Triple-digit strikeouts both of those years. That could be the interesting thing. Walks, still floating in the, the walks have been going down through the career, with the exception of 2019. But are we going to see that great version of Antonio Senzatella again? Antonio Senzatella in 3 seasons now, has thrown roughly 113 pitches. So the jury's still going to be out on what the true impact of Senza can be. But on paper, for me, the rotation going into this year of Marquez, Senza, Freeland, Gomber, Feltner, I am more confident for sure in the rotation than at least we've had the last 2 seasons specifically. And I think that this rotation has the ability to help stop the nasty skids. Help stop the stretches in which the Rockies lose 6, 7, 5, these stretches where they don't win a ball game in a week. I think this rotation on paper is going to be the difference maker. I don't think they're going to be the best in baseball. I don't think they're going to dominate. I don't think they're going to set the world ablaze. I don't think one of them is going to be an all-star. But I think by adding these 2 guys in who have had strong histories of success, their best seasons, better than the best performances that we've seen from Rocky starters in the last few years, is great. And I think especially it's going to be great because then Kyle Freeland can go back to where he's supposed to be right now. Middle of the rotation, help you win the rubber match. Why do I like this rotation? Because in 3-game sets, I'm going to feel a lot better about the Rockies to take 2 out of 3 if it's Herman, Senza, Freeland. Those guys I know can help the Rockies win ball games. And Feltner can get there. Gomber's up and down, and Senza goes into that up and down category as well. But I know this rotation is better with Herman Marquez in it. I know this rotation is better with Antonio Senzatella in it. And I know that Kyle Freeland benefits from that as well. Let me see here. Go back to that. I closed all my tabs before I wanted to here. But Kyle Freeland in that year where in 2.1 a 3 WAR there in 2022 where Marquez took a dip. It shows you that when Freeland doesn't have to be the one shouldering all the weight, the rotation will be able to benefit a little bit more from that. And I hope that means that there's less pressure that Freeland has to carry. We know how intense he is. We know how much he cares. We know how much passion and energy is there. But hopefully it can take off some of the frustration and some of the pressure that Freeland puts on himself, because he has to be able to turn to and look at the rest of his battery mates and say, I got to believe that these guys can help us get wins. I got to buy into that. And I know he does that with Marquez and Senzatella. because those guys have been there for the vast majority of the time Freeland's been pitching. They know, the three of them know what it takes to win and be successful at Coors Field. Be an impact player. Those three are the guys I want talking with Ryan Feltner, working with Ryan Feltner, getting Ryan Feltner in a spot that he can blossom into the hype that it's starting to build and bubble about him this year. The Rockies rotation will not be one of the best in baseball, but it certainly can be a lot better than it has been with these two players. All right, let's take a quick break, take a couple of YouTube comments, and let's wrap it up for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Gametime. No better place to get your tickets for all the biggest events. Doesn't have to just be sports either, folks. You can check out all the fun at Gametime. Big time games, of course, like the NFL playoffs, like the big game going on this weekend. It's an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. There's nothing like the energy and atmosphere. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I recently have used Gametime Picks because, just figuring out what I want to do sometimes is a little different. So I just open up the app, see what's going on. Gametime Picks gave me a couple of recommendations, and me and the wife went out for a nice, fun night on the town. One of my favorite things, it's a small thing, but it's something I appreciate greatly. I'm getting an image. I'm getting a view from my seat, so I know exactly where I'm sitting and exactly what I'm paying for. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Locked On Rockies wrapping up for today. We were talking rotation. This is such a big storyline to watch here. Such a massive storyline for the Rockies here is the return and the rebuilding of this rotation. It's a storyline that we haven't been able to hype up like this in 2 years at minimum, because the return of both of these players really does change things and really does not mess things up, shifts the dynamic of the starting rotation that we've been building and dealing with the last couple of seasons. So let me know. What are your thoughts? Are you confident in the rotation with the return of Senzatella and German Marquez? What's on your mind? Let me know. All right. We are just running out of time. So I just want to read a couple of quick things, because yesterday's episode we were talking about how Rockies fans can relate to Mavericks fans when a star player is traded from you there. Obviously not a one-for-one comparison, but let's see here. Let's see. Cade here. This is what Cade has to say. Cade says, I'm still upset about the Arenado trade. I'm proud of us for showing Dick Monfort that a stadium isn't everything the past couple of years, but I don't think anything will change until he's gone. Fortunately, that doesn't seem anytime soon. Yeah, nope, it ain't happening. Let's see. Jim says, I learned years ago watching the Denver Broncos, when you don't worry about whether or not they win, you don't get all frustrated and annoyed, and you feel happier. Hey, just enjoying the sport, just firing it up, turning it on. It's your team. It's your hometown team, or your team where you live now. Firing it on and just enjoying the sport and enjoying a nice afternoon, watching what you love. Can't argue with that, Jim. Deadshot here has a question about Bud Black, but maybe we'll talk about that one tomorrow, where we can sink our teeth into it a little bit more here. Lux Ace says, yeah, it's just sad, man. The Rockies teams with Charlie and Nolan, and story with my childhood Rockies growing up. I always think about what could have been if we held on to Nolan and made smart moves. Yeah, it's the what if I think people will be watching or are asking all the time. Marco says, thanks for another great pod, Paul. I do have to admit that it was a gut punch all over again, reliving the Nolan trade. At least the Mavs got an incredibly talented player in turn who will help them now, instead of a group of prospects of which we're basically down to one magic bean left. Plus, I don't think the Mavs are giving the Lakers $50 million to help pay Luka's contract. Yep, all great points there, but it's just a reminder. I think sports fans, it just shows you. I think, like, And hearing these comments too, I just wonder how many Rockies fans were once they saw that trade were immediately transported back to hearing the news about Arenado and that stuff. It's really tough on fans when you do that type of stuff, and really tough to hype yourself up as a fan of some of these teams when actions like that happen. Folks, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Remember, be part of the show by heading over to the Locked On Rockies YouTube's comment section, firing off those Rockies hot takes. Make sure you're liking the videos, subscribing there, letting your friends know we're talking Rockies baseball all off season and throughout the season here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. So don't miss out. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.